if you've been living under a rock for the last 5 days, then might I be the first to let you know that Smile Direct Club has ceased operations and is no longer taking care of patients. I think the biggest challenge that's coming from this, and certainly as clinicians, because if we're being very honest about how dentists felt about Smile Direct Club, I don't think it was a very loving relationship. I think we've always struggled with the concept that consumers could get high quality dental care from someone who's never met them, has no real diagnosis of their oral condition, doesn't really understand or know the nuances of the patient's oral health, and yet could provide predictable quality orthodontic care. And so, in full disclosure, I think most dentists were really always very uncomfortable with the business model and in general with direct to consumer dental products like snap-on veneers, and now you can do your own scan impressions for dentures, et cetera. I think there's a lot of nuances in that particular business model. That being said, we are still very sympathetic to the fact that there are patients out there who were in active care to the tune of a couple million, I think, at this point, who no longer have care, to no longer have a company that they can reach out to or provide further guidance. Certainly, no additional aligners will be shipped to them. They are expected, however, to pay in full if they were afforded some type of payment structure for their care, but no support on the back end. So I think we're finding a lot of patients are sort of in this limbo of what they do now. I have seen, I know Align is starting to offer some help to clinicians. So if you do find yourself with patients who are coming in the front door with Smile Direct cases mid treatment, or they're unsure where they go from here and need some advice or help, I know Align in particular is providing support for that, but I'm sure other aligner companies are considering the same. So be sure that if you are a clear aligner provider and you do provide that service in your practice, that you reach out to the companies that you work with to see if they're providing any financial help so that you can then, extend that to Smile Direct Club patients to hopefully at least get them to a healthy and happy place, which was ultimately what they were seeking to begin with. So we're continuing to watch the story develop, but certainly that is an unfortunate situation that most of those patients are finding themselves into. We did talk about this last week. The founders were looking for that last Hail Mary, but it would appear that the board did not approve their request to go ahead and just buy or acquire the company outright. Somehow I have a feeling we're not done yet. Just call me a 10 full hat wearing cynicist. But somehow I feel like this might be some restructuring behind the scenes that we may not all really fully appreciate, but that will be determined. I did happen to see today that another aligner company that has kind of a modified model is now doing a little bit more shipment to direct to consumer. I don't think they're doing direct to consumer treatment yet, but they are sort of picking up maybe where SDC left off. So we'll see. In other news, if you'll remember a few weeks ago, actually it's been a few months now, we talked about how radiation recommendations have changed, and that with some of the most recent studies that had come out, the recommendation had been maybe to not necessarily have to use a lead apron anymore for routine dental radiography. We were all pretty excited about that, thinking, maybe we can eliminate some of the overhead of taking radiography in the practice. And also, I think we've operated knowing that that probably was true for a while, but now the data is starting to confirm our suspicion. Well, California Dental Association did come out this week to say, put that lead apron right back on again, because the state regulatory body has the ultimate authority. So if you are inclined to start removing lead aprons from patients or encouraging them not to use them, be sure that you are checking with your local state board to make sure they are going to back you up with that decision. CDA brought up an interesting piece. It's actually in their legislation for their Dental Practice Act that you have to shield. So while I'm not sure that they disagree or that they don't support the measure, They don't have legislation that's moving fast enough with the data. So I do think we'll see states move towards maybe modification of the Dental Practice Act if they have information legislatively that dictates that you have to shield every patient. We may start to see that onion peel back a little bit. But it is important to note that while the data and the recommendations from the institutions that review and discuss radiology are that lead aprons probably are not providing a huge benefit, that now has to matriculate down to a local level for states to ultimately decide if they're going to change their laws. So it's important to know your own state law and also maybe lobby or participate in the advocacy if you feel very passionate about trying to get rid of lead aprons in your practice. The last thing I wanted to bring up tonight actually is because of who we have joining us this evening. So, the House just recently passed the Lower Cost, More Transparency Act. We have talked about this previously on other episodes. It did pass on December 11th. This particular bill is really focused on increasing funding for those type community health centers, the Community Health Fund, National Health Service Corps, teaching health center, graduate medical education programs, etc. This is all about access to care and to continue those programs to grow and provide critical access to care in the communities in which they serve. So this was seen to be a huge win for public health in general and patients specifically, but also just to continue to validate and reiterate that we can really inject capital into those who are providing help to that underserved community and allow those efforts to grow. And with that, that's the news.